There are actually 3 reasons why I didn't want to make this video. The first one is it sounds like I'm bragging. Number 2, it makes people put expectation on their work by comparing it to other people. And 3, the work is just really not that great and I will really cringe at it. But with that being said, quite a handful of people requested this video, and I thought if this video will be able to help other people with their portfolio and application just by using my work as a reference, then why not? So let's just get this video over with. A quick disclaimer before this video starts. This is not the standard that you should be chasing after, because I truly believe that with anything art related, especially portfolio wise, you really need to have your own style and pursue your own level of what you believe is good work. You really need to figure out what you like and what your own style is. So with that being said, let's get into the video. So hi everyone, my name is Glory and I'm a second year architecture student studying at the Bartlett School of Architecture at UCL. So from the title, today I'm going to be sharing with you the portfolio that I submitted to Bartlett, of course, and also some other schools that I applied to, which got me into some of these schools that I applied to. And hopefully this will be useful for some of you, if not just an entertaining video to watch and as a reference. So let's go. I've linked the timestamps down below if you want to skip straight to the portfolio section, but I will be going through tons of useful information in this video, so make sure to stick to the rest and the end of the video. So I only applied to universities in the UK because my secondary school or high school was already very UK based, so it made sense for me to just apply to UK universities. So here are the universities that I applied to. So obviously we have the Bartlett School of Architecture, UCL, which is where I'm at right now, and we have Cambridge, Bath, Sheffield, and Cardiff. So I got accepted to all of these schools except for Cambridge, but I was still able to go to Cambridge and experience the interview section, which was actually a very good experience, so I don't regret applying at all. And to be fair, I kind of like UCL a bit more, just based on the course curriculum, but it really depends on your own personal preference as well, so in the end it all worked out for me. So each school has slightly different formats for their portfolio submission, except for Bath, where they really don't require you to send a portfolio at all, as they tend to focus on more of the maths and physics side. It was actually a very weird story because I actually really wanted to go to Bath in the beginning because some part of me really preferred the engineering side of the course a lot more. But it's a long story, so I won't say it for this video. But fate ultimately decided for me, and here I am here at Bartlett with my love for art and creativity. So most of my work is really similar across all portfolios, with the exception of UCL and Cambridge, because they do have an in-person interview round after you apply to their university. So instead of sending a digital portfolio like Sheffield and Cardiff, I had to bring all of my original work over to the interview and talk to the interviewer about my work. So in this video, I'll be showing my work in a digital format, which is the ones that I submitted to Sheffield and Cardiff, but do keep in mind that I showed the original version of the work at the Bartlett interview, and I really brought over like huge pieces of 3D work and also paintings to show the actual scale of the paintings to the interviewer. But it could be different because of COVID right now, so just keep that in mind. So I guess in a sense, the portfolio layout doesn't really matter that much for Bartlett because I did show them in person. But if you really are submitting digitally, I guess this doesn't exactly apply, but you could use my work as a reference to see how you should lay them out. So here's just a table showing the different requirements of what each school requires for you to send to them. Now let's just get straight to the portfolio section. Okay, so I have my portfolio here in front of me, and we're gonna go through it together. So keep in mind that there's a few variations from each portfolio that I sent to different schools. So this is just a more general sense. There's not much annotations here because I felt like the work was more important, especially this video is more targeted to people who want to go into Bartlett. I didn't have annotations in a digital portfolio, but I can show it to you after we go through this one. So yeah, let's just get straight into it. So this is the cover page of my portfolio. now that I look at it, it's a little bit cringy because of the way I laid the words out, but it was what I could do as a 17, 18-year-old. So yeah, there we go. Cover page with my name on it. Second page. So here we have some observational sketches I did, which was mostly just body parts that I thought was quite interesting. So just stating the obvious, this is a mouth, that's an eye, and that's some hair. I think these are just all observational drawings I did around GCSE or the beginning of A-level, and I thought I was showcasing some of my observational skills, which I thought was quite important for like an architecture student. And then this is the second page of like more observational studies of a nose and an eye, just using like random materials. I think a variety of materials is what's great. And this is just a drawing I did of a painting I did of my friend. And this is, I think, adapting an artist's style, which is very A-level vibes in this painting. But yeah, I thought the curves and the line work was quite nice in this one, so I included that one. And this is one of the projects that I think the interviewer who interviewed me for UCL really liked. This was a 3D project which had the title of Beauty Standards, and this one is called Reflection. Essentially, it's a model that encases this face that I made in the middle of the thing, and it has all these pods surrounding it with all the footprints of what the cost of beauty is. So for example, here I have some cotton buds, contacts, nails, hair, and like some makeup pads, which is actually a little bit disturbing and disgusting if I'm being honest. But here's just like some process pages from my sketchbook looking at like what my process was and the ideas behind this whole thing. And this was some progress photos looking at how I made the piece. So I think it involved a lot of cutting and carving with wood and actually piecing them all together with clamps and using a drill. And this was the final piece. Now that I look at it, I don't really like it that much, but I think for me back then, this was a year 12 A-level piece, and it took a lot of effort because everything was made from scratch apart from like these pieces on the top, but especially the face in the middle, it was like completely modeled by hand, and the entire light box was also made by hand. So I think in my interview, the Bartlett interviewer was really interested in my whole process and what drove me to make this piece. And I think a really important part of like your portfolio is really showing about the idea behind it and also showing some progress photos, like, and showing the process and what drove you to make certain choices, because I think that's really important when you're going to be like in architecture, especially in a school like Bartlett where so much things is really focusing on the process instead of the final product. So I think this was a really good example to show that. So we talked a lot about this project in the interview. And this is some more photographs that I did also relating to the theme of beauty standards, because that was my theme for year 12 in A-level art. So I took photos of my friend in a bathtub, which was quite fun to be honest, and I think the photographs turned out pretty nice. And this is just a drawing I did. I think more of an observational drawing from like one of the photographs in the page before, which is this one. And yeah, there we go. And this is another project in the same theme, so it's called Beauty to the Extreme. So it's kind of like you taking the bathtub idea and pushing it to a really pushing the boundaries of that. And essentially I created this large 3D piece that was a full bathtub using a clay as the edge and also painting my friend in the middle. And it's almost like they're drowning in all of these beauty standards that society set us. And again, here is just some planning and drawings and like idea developments of my final piece, and some testing of materials like resin here. And this is just a photo showing me like how I made it. I guess an interesting story was that the clay kept cracking, so I have to kept making the clay again and again for about like 3 to 5 times. So it was quite a tedious process, but I think it was a good project. So more progress photos, and that was the final piece, completely made by hand, everything, well except for the tap, but it was a good progress. I think I also have to mention that in the interview I didn't actually get to show this piece to the interviewer because we were too focused on discussing the previous piece that I showed him, so we didn't get to actually talk about this piece. But I felt like a really good important part about these is also the progress and how you created it. Again, idea development and the process behind it I think is very, very important for these pieces and in your portfolio. So here's just some photography that I did, obviously, of water balloons bursting and like paint separating. Yeah, and some more photographs, photography experimenting with shutter speed and just different perspectives. I think this is pretty generic and basic, but I thought it was a nice page to add that in. And here is some digital art that I did very, very early on, the first time I've ever done any digital art. So these are magazine covers that I did for a science magazine in my secondary school. So this is just experimenting with different color schemes and showcasing them. And here's another project I did. This was for GCSE. So this is street sellers. So I look into the wet markets of Hong Kong, which is where I'm from. And I did some observational sketches. I actually quite like these ones. I thought the black and white really brings out the highlights and the shadows. Yeah, so here's just some more drawings I did and development for the final piece here for my GCSE. And yeah, actually this is a drawing for a UCL task, but I sneaked it in. Here's just some architecture projects I did when I was interning at a company, and it was my first time using SketchUp and really thinking about how to lay out a space. So yeah, here's just the nitty-gritties of those things and like different perspectives in SketchUp. And here's like the final drawing I did for that internship project, which wasn't really official, but I thought was a good experience overall. And this was a project I did when I was doing a summer course in architecture in Hong Kong University, where we developed these ideas. And I actually thought the course was quite useful in the sense that they taught you how to use different architecture materials and tools, which is really helpful. But I didn't necessarily really like this project overall. It was a bit meh, and I think the most important thing in this was developing ideas and also to try to figure out what the plan and section. So this was a house that was extending. I think it's because they gave us like we can only use certain different types of planes, and it was a continuation from our project one. So this was just me experimenting with the process and how I could figure out the shape. Bear in mind that I have zero experience with architecture at this point, so I really have no idea what I was doing. Yeah, and that was the final model, and also like the circulation and how it is. But I have to be really honest and say that I did bring this model over to the Bartlett interview because it was in person, and the interviewer absolutely hated this project. So yeah, it's not good. I really don't like this one. I think it was because this project didn't have that much time to develop, and it was a very basic and bare project compared to, say, my previous few A-level projects, which was a lot more developed and was very rich in the idea behind it, which I think was why it appealed to the interviewer, and this one didn't necessarily do that. So I think keep in mind with what type of projects you want to include in your portfolio, especially if it's going to be a digital portfolio, because you're not going to be present there to explain every step of your process to them and how much thought you actually put into them. The only things that can show is the photographs and the work that you put in your digital portfolio. So really, really keep in mind about the process and the idea behind it, because I think that's what they're looking for. So yeah. And here's just some year 13 work that I did before. I didn't have any completed year 13 work because at the time the interview was midway through year 13, obviously. So my theme was substance abuse, like drugs and stuff. So here's just some experimentations I did with texture paste on photographs and a painting that I did looking into substance abuse and how I kind of laid out the faces and things. Yeah, and that's the end of my portfolio. So now we're gonna look through one of an example portfolio that I sent through to, say, Cardiff or Sheffield, because they require digital portfolios. So here's a sample one. So depending on their requirements, I put like a short introduction here. And in this portfolio, the different part is that I actually had a bit of descriptions. So I will just flick through them briefly because I don't think the descriptions are that important. I think the work speaks for themselves a lot more. So here we go. That's the beauty standards project, the bathtub project, photographs, digital art, and street sellers, and the SketchUp project, and this architecture project that I really hate. So I think in this portfolio, the more important thing is really just letting the work speak for itself and the annotations, I think again, like, don't describe your work in the annotations, talk more about the idea behind it and the process that you experience, because the work can kind of describe themselves to the person who's looking at your work already, so I don't think it's that important. So there we go. So that's the portfolio section over. I hope that was really helpful. And before I end this video, I just want to mention a few important points with your portfolio and your application, basically. I think the really important thing is really the process behind it, because I think that's what the interviewer or the examiner or the, what do you call it? Like, people at Bartlett want to see the most, because I think that's what really drives the project. And from my experience in studying in the Bartlett for 2 years already, I feel like the idea behind a project and the final piece is what's most important to them, rather than having like pretty paintings and pretty drawings that has no meaning behind them, say like painting a flower and saying that's it. Yeah, and I just feel like the whole idea, richness of the idea and the thought process of what made you make a certain choice and why did you pick something and decide to go in this direction is just so important. So I think really keep that in mind when you're showing your portfolio, no matter if you're writing annotations on a digital portfolio or you're in person in an interview describing or analyzing or telling them what your art project is really about. And yeah, I think that's the most important thing, because I see lots of portfolios online when people are describing them, and also just people around me when they're showing their work. A lot of it is focused really on the description part, when the work can really just speak for itself already. The interviewers and people at these schools are not stupid, like they can see the work already. So I think they're most interested to know how you are as a person and how you function, what goes through your mind when you're making these pieces. And I think that's what's the most important thing. So yeah, and that's some of, I guess, my advice. Yeah, I hope this video was really helpful for some of you who are looking forward to studying architecture and maybe at the Bartlett School of Architecture, and also some of the other schools I mentioned, which I got in as well. So let me know if there's anything else that I should make videos on regarding this area, and I'll be really happy to help, despite me kind of cringing at my own work. But I still hope it was enjoyable for you to watch and also informative. So comment down below and let me know if you have any questions or recommendations for me and videos and what to make. And thank you so much for watching my videos. I really appreciate it, and I hope this was really helpful for some of you. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye!